Director of the city's Economic Development and Revitalization Department. Today's event is part of our Economic Development Week 2022 campaign. You may be wondering what that means. What's an Economic Development Week? Well, it's actually a program that's put on by the International Economic Development Council, which is a broad professional organization of economic development professionals, both in the United States and elsewhere. And they do it every year. And it's a campaign to help our communities raise awareness of what we do as economic development professionals. And so when you think about economic development activities that contribute to a community's quality of life, you're thinking about things like job creation and investment, things like other community programs, especially business support programs, and growing and diversifying the tax base. So things we try to do and other communities try to do is have some programs like this one. Also proclamations, which our mayor did like last week's commission meeting, just to announce that we are basically celebrating everything economic development. So everything you see around yourself in the community, things are being built, housing, businesses, everything that you can think of, really, even infrastructure is all tied in some way to economic development. So as a profession, we like to basically raise our banner and say, yay for us, basically. So in keeping kind of with that campaign theme, today's objective of the program of Import-Export 101 is to better help you understand as a business doing business in foreign markets. So that's an area that I know our department is trying to push more than we have in the past for our business community. And with the markets that we have here at international airports and the seaports nearby in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of ample trade opportunities for businesses. They just need the information. They need to know from the folks we have on the call today of what's available for resources, really. So with that, we have 5 organizations with us today. We have Diaz Trade Law. We have the International Trade Administration, which is connected to the U.S. Department of Commerce. We have World Logistics Passport, Port Everglades, and the Miramar Pembroke Pines Chamber of Commerce. So those are the folks that will be delivering the information today. With that, I'm going to now turn the program over to the program host, Dr. Angela Mumford, to start the program off with Jennifer Diaz. Jennifer, Angela.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me today. Today, we're going to talk about laws and regulations, which doesn't always sound fun, but it is fun. So hopefully by the end of our 15 minutes together, you'll see that they're important and not so bad to comply with. I'm curious if we have chat box access, if anybody can type in the chat box. If you're brand new to importing, this is great for you. And if you're newer to exporting, this is also great. Even if you're experienced, there's usually something new that you'll learn as well. So I'm curious for those of you that are brand new to importing and exporting. My name's Jennifer Diaz. I'm the president of Diaz Trade Law. I'm a board certified international attorney, and this is all I eat, live, and breathe is import-export laws. So everybody should have their own customs counsel. So everything that we are saying here is general in nature. If you have something specific to ask, please make sure you reach out to your own customs and trade attorney as well, or feel free to contact me anytime. So glad that everyone is spending 15 minutes with us or with me today, and an hour and a half with all of us to learn from really amazing experts today as we talk about importing and exporting. So U.S. Customs has a whole lot of rules and regulations. It's quite easy to just start importing. And one of the basic things that you need when you start importing is a U.S. Customs broker. They're the ones that file the paperwork on your behalf. And also a customs surety is basically insurance for customs, not necessarily for you. Everybody can see my screen, right? I'm hoping. So the top 10 tips when importing to ensure compliance is on my screen right now. So it's something that we'll share with you after the fact as well. We're going to break down and talk about them so that hopefully they make sense today. So if you're brand new to importing, you at least have your guidebook and roadmap on where to start so that you are sure that at least you've done your homework and your what we call pre-compliance. So number 1 on my list is to know your product, know your supplier. So many people get into importing because they just randomly pick something on Alibaba that they think is going to sell really, really well on Amazon. So they don't know their supplier, they don't know their products, they don't know the product specifications, and they have no idea what U.S. federal government agencies can regulate that particular product. One of my favorite stories is a client with a first importation of candy inside a cute little motorcycle with cute little handles that break right off. that particular motorcycle was regulated by over 3 agencies. You had US Customs and Border Protection, which cared about intellectual property rights, which we'll talk about in a second. You have Consumer Product Safety Commission, which cared about the fact that those handlebars could just break off and a kid could choke on them. So it presented a choking hazard. And CPSC has specific tests that they would expect of the particular importer to have prior to bringing those motorcycles in. And FDA cares about those cute candies that had awesome colors all over them. And they were artificially colored with these artificial colors. And every single one of those colors had to come from an approved color source. And they didn't. So my poor client's first importation, he had potential criminal liability with CPSC because God forbid a kid choked and died. That would have been horrible. FDA was not happy with his colors, and US Customs was also not happy because he had trademarks on his motorcycle that he didn't have the authorization to put on his motorcycle. Bottom line is he didn't do his homework for number one. He didn't know anything about the product or the requirements to import the product. So if you're importing a food, you need FDA and US Customs. And you have to follow specific rules. Sometimes it's registration, sometimes it's labeling, sometimes it's testing. But the bottom line is your broker itself isn't always going to be the one to help you, guide you through this. And technically, they really shouldn't be. You should always have somebody on your team, either internally or externally, that's helping you with compliance. The new big thing is anti-dumping, countervailing duties, and what we call China tariffs. So if you're importing any item from China, you really have to do a little bit more research because there truly is a trade war going on right now, and that extra 25% margin for some products could really kill your products and your profit margin if you don't take that into account prior to importing. So number one really is all about research on your product, the companies that you're doing business with, your total numbers, your real requirements. Number two is about protecting your particular brand. If you have a brand yourself, most people don't realize that after you're done with United States Patent and Trademark Office and you've registered your brand to give the world notice that it's yours, the second thing that you should be doing is recording that registered brand with US Customs. On the right-hand side is a picture of US Customs. They have a seizure, basically database that they list live, and every couple of days they upload new stats. So as of fiscal year 2021, there have been over 20,000 seizures of intellectual property rights, basically counterfeits. And the reason that Customs cares about these particular products is because these companies have taken the time to record their brand with Customs. So now Customs is going to protect them. So when you think of, we see a lot of Cartier bracelets, for example, that youngins have ordered online thinking that they can sell or give away to their family members, and they're fakes. Cartier has a trademark registered with USPTO and recorded with Customs. So when you see this, when you get the presentation, you'll notice that this is a link. I want you to have some homework reading, and I want you to read about all of the amazing protections that Customs offered. Because now, if you were to violate Cartier's trademark and import a counterfeit version, Customs gets to seize that fake and also issue a penalty as if it was legitimate, which is crazy. I have a young 20-year-old woman who's come to me with $1 million penalty because she tried to order some bracelets online and didn't do anything when it came to the seizure case, and now gets this massive penalty, and personally. So before anything else, also, a top tip is start a business. Your business should be separating you personally from liability. If you make an order online, it shouldn't be under your personal name. It should be always under a business. Number three is one of the most important here in regards to reasonable care. This is your obligation. If you're going to be an importer of record, you must use reasonable care. This is a customs requirement, and it's a weird word. What does it really mean? It means you have to do the requisite due diligence that a like importer would do under the same circumstances. So you should be hiring an expert and doing your research and homework. And you should be keeping records that you're actually doing your homework, because if Customs audits you, that's what they're going to ask for. So what everyone always wants to know is, well, what's my classification? What are the duties, the taxes, the duties that you're going to pay is 100% based upon your classification. So we've got some great articles I'll share with you, as well as a new Bloomberg article that just came out about what is your tariff classification? Why does it change? How is the number comprised? Is the number the same as other countries? It's the same up until the 6th digit. And it's kind of a complicated system of classification, but there are a few different ways to break down how you get to the right classification. And normally it can be simple. If you're importing an apple, there's a classification heading for apples. That's very easy. If it's more complicated, there are specific rules that interpret how you read the HTS-US, the Harmonized Tariff Schedule. The next portion is whether or not you're using the correct value. And your value is typically your commercial invoice value. We've been seeing a lot of people make mistakes by adding freight to their value. That's the last thing you want to do right now, considering how high freight costs are. So you want to ensure that you have a great customs broker that's filling out the right paperwork with US Customs and deducting freight, because that's not something you want to add. What's always interesting to me is when I look at the counterfeit statistics like we see on the right, China, of course, is the #1 when you put China and Hong Kong together. But what's interesting is Turkey is always up there, and so is Canada, interestingly enough, and Singapore. So these are the next 3 top countries, in addition to China and Hong Kong, to be aware of when it comes to counterfeits. The next portion is your country of origin. When it comes to the country of origin, what Customs is looking for and really scouting right now are what they believe is called transshipment, meaning goods are made in China, but somebody's trying to avoid countervailing duties, anti-dumping duties, and or that extra 25% China tariff. And instead, they're shipping those goods to Malaysia or somewhere else and stamping the goods with a country of origin of Malaysia and importing it without those extra China tariffs. Unfortunately, this does happen. And I have seen what I would call innocent importers get duped because they communicate with their supplier, which is usually a trading company, and they don't really have access to the actual manufacturer. And the trading company says, oh, you're good. These are made in whatever, Malaysia, Vietnam, Turkey, whatever country, and you don't have a problem. And then when they get the goods, they're stamped made in China. That doesn't help you, right? At all. And you really, how do you overcome this? Lots of different things to think about here, but the first is you really should know who the manufacturer is, and your trading company may not want to give that up, but you may need proof of the actual manufacturer. There are some investigations that are ongoing right now that are really, really nasty from US Customs, and there's not a lot of sympathy for those innocent importers because, like we said at the beginning, the obligation is on the importer to do their homework in advance and to get paperwork / proof of importation, proof of actual production prior to importation. In my perfect world, you would have written processes. You would say, before I classify my goods, here are the steps. I ask the supplier for a sample of the product or for specifications of the product. I talk to my experts about the right classification. I talk to my broker. I talk internally. I talk to my manufacturer. We all agree what the right classification is. I look for customs rulings because customs has a binding ruling process where anyone who has questions about their classification, country of origin, whether or not a free trade is applicable, you can ask customs, and customs provides an opinion for free, and it's binding on customs. It's really a beautiful program, but I always say you have to be careful because whatever customs says goes. I've had someone who was crazy in the past who didn't like what customs had to say, so they ignored it and did the opposite of the opinion. And it's not really like an opinion, it's a binding opinion from customs, meaning you have to follow it. And if you purposefully don't follow it, that's fraud. So that was a whole nother bad story. But to summarize, in terms of all the things that you have to do from a US Customs perspective, is make sure you're using the right classification, make sure you're using the right valuation, you have the right country of origin stamped on your product for the ultimate consumer to see, protect your intellectual property rights, and research your other government agency requirements. And if you ever have questions that you're unsure of, know that you can talk to experts like myself and or US Customs themselves. And in, for example, the National Import Specialist Branch, they will provide binding rulings for you for free, which is a really, really beautiful service. But in order to get that binding ruling, you do have to put together a submission that does take considerable time and energy and effort because all of the background about your products you have to provide, especially, for example, if you want customs to confirm that you're using a free trade agreement correctly, like USMCA. If customs is ever mad at you or trying to question your importations, they would send you a 28, a request for information, or a 29, a notice of action, or a notice of detention, a notice of seizure. So if those things ever would happen, then you let us know, and there's always a process to help. On the export side, it's pretty similar in that you should know, again, who your product, the product specifications, who your supplier is, who the end user of your products are, and who regulates you. So I know others will talk about this a little more as well, but to me, the big aspect at the beginning for our steps 1 through 7 is, does your product need a license when you're exporting it? Does it not need a license when you're exporting it? And how do you figure that out? And sometimes it's a little more difficult to figure out the right classification for your product. On the import side, you're using your HTS US. On the export side, you're using what's called a Schedule B. And you do a search. For example, if you were exporting apples again, that would be pretty easy. You'd find your number quite quickly. If you're exporting encryption related software, it might be a little more complicated dependent upon the level of technology within that particular product. Now, once you understand if your product goes boom or bang, if it can be used by a military, if it's a weapon or such, it's going to be classified under the US munitions list. It's going to be regulated by the DDTC. It's under ITAR, that's for sure. I think the majority of you, if you're exporting, you would be under the Commerce Control List, under the Bureau of Industry and Security. That's way more normal. Normally what we see is, for example, going back to your apple, you're sending an apple over to another foreign country. Great. The apple is not something we're scared about. The apple isn't something that goes boom or bang. But the end user who you're sending the apple to could be somebody on our bad guy list. So at the bare minimum, it's an obligation to check the consolidated screening list, which when you get this, you'll see that this is a hyperlink. On that consolidated screening list, you'll see bad countries, people, and so on. One of my top tips is, if you have information about the country, you can do a countrywide search, or you can do an individual search for a company or for a person. I like to keep the fuzzy name on. Now, Consolidated Screening List is a free resource. There are also some very cool, sexy softwares that do this automatically for you that are paid services. It's something that you have as an option. It's not an obligation for you to buy those sexy softwares. But if you don't, I highly recommend, I almost want to say it's mandatory, for you to check this consolidated screening list and list those records attached and keep those records in your files for a minimum of 6 years. Record keeping is really 5, but I like 6. It'll make me extra happy, so you never have an issue. And I want that consolidated screening list search. I want you to do a PDF of it and do a print screen of it, because then you get the date and time that you searched. And I want you to save that to your file where you have your commercial invoice, your bill of lading, your packing list, and your export documentation. The second thing that people often mess up in exporting, where even though the goods don't need a license, you have an obligation to file what they call electronic export information. This is data. It's like census data. It's like what we exported to whom and where and when and so on. There are often times where I hear, but my freight forwarder was supposed to file that for me. I highly recommend that if you're newer to exporting and you're starting a new relationship with a forwarder, so a freight forwarder helps you export and a customs broker helps you import goods. If you have a newer freight forwarder relationship, I want you to ask them if they're the ones that are filing the EEI, your AES filing, or if they have an expectation that you do the filing. And if you are supposed to do the filing, you better get some training on that first. And there is a lot of really great training on that on export.gov as well. And then if your freight forwarder is going to do the filing for you, get that in writing. Send at a minimum an email saying, to confirm your services will include filing my electronic export information, my automated export controls, my automated export system. And now it's filed in ACE, in the automated commercial environment. Bottom line is, it's a paperless filing, and it's a matter of what you're exporting to whom, and it's required whenever the shipment is worth over $2,500 or more, and which is quite often. Hopefully your shipments are worth a lot more. The same thing on the export side is the US government really, really wants to see a written compliance program. What are your written processes? How do you vet your customers? How do you know who your customers are? Do you know if your customer is the actual end user or you have no idea? Do you know what the customer is going to use your products for, if they're the ones reselling or not? And have you checked the consolidated screening list? Did you check to see whether your product does or doesn't need a license? If you do these things systematically, you're in an amazing place, because then you have records saying, this is my process, and here's me showing you how I work through my process. The first thing I do is I ask my manufacturer, what's the classification for this product? And the manufacturer says EAR 99, there's no license required. Great. And then instead of just trusting, we also verify. There are hour-long sessions that we can go through just on classification. So if you ever do have classification questions, please reach out and let us know. And Kathryn's going to speak next, and her office is amazing as well. So you'll see a lot of really terrific resources today. So know that you're not alone in this, but these are really specific steps that you have to follow, because the people that export without a license to a bad guy country like Iran or Cuba, for example, and without doing any homework, there could be criminal implications in addition to really massive penalties, which nobody wants to be on the other side of. The other thing that we see a lot of are seizure cases. If, like I was telling you about your forwarder, if you and your forwarder don't have an agreement in place as to who's going to file that electronic export information, and customs doesn't see the filing, customs has the right to seize your goods. And we see that often. And we wind up getting those goods back, but it takes 6 months to a year to go through a seizure process. It's not a pleasure. So I want you to have great records, understand what I want you to have great records of. I want you to have great people on your team or externally that help you. You're not supposed to do this alone. You do need a mini little village to help you with exporting or importing. And on the importing side, I want you to have a great broker. On the exporting side, I want you to have a great forwarder that you know, that you trust. What I often see is, oh, well, my supplier told me that they're using whatever broker, and I'm just going to sign a POA, a power of attorney, authorizing that broker to file on my behalf. No, I want you to know the broker. I want the broker to know that they're acting on your behalf. What I see in those instances, for example, is the supplier has the relationship with the broker and not you, the importer, and they're using you, your name as the importer, so you're responsible for the accuracy of all of the statements and for any potential penalties. But the supplier has all the control of the information. So we see undervaluing and horrible things that wind up getting the importer in trouble, and the importer's in trouble just because they didn't do their homework. So this particular top 10 tips you can download at diaztradelot.com. It's a free download on our site. I also wanted to share with you that Customs has a new CBP AD CVD site. The reason this is important is this is the number1 thing that we see Customs regulating today. So you know, $136 billion in China tariffs have been collected by U.S. Customs thus far. 136 billion. That's a lot. There have been 83,000 seizures from Customs in 2021, and one of which could be not having that AES filing. 23 related EPA investigations, basically Customs getting complaints that a competitor was lying, cheating, or stealing and not paying anti-dumping appropriately, and there are public litigation type complaints. 23 of those already just this year alone. There's $227 million in merchandise that was detained by Customs because of a forced labor potential issue. Forced labor is one thing I did want to bring up because that is a hot topic right now as well from U.S. Customs. And my #1 recommendation that's easy to do here is there's an app on your phone called Sweat and Toil. Sweat and Toil. It's a Department of Labor app. So if you say, I want to buy whatever spice from India, let's say, great, let's look at the Sweat and Toil app. And It'll tell you whether or not there is or isn't a known issue with forced labor from that particular country for that particular product type. If there is, there's more you have to do. You have to do your homework in advance because customs is stopping any goods that they believe are made with forced labor. So we've got an article I was talking to about tariff classification basics for Bloomberg. All of these are hyperlinks so you can read them. And one on forced labor that I highly encourage you to read because customs is taking forced labor incredibly seriously these days. This is another article on recordation with customs that I put in the required reading section for you, so that I'm hoping when you start, you protect your brand. And I hope your brand is as sexy and successful as Cartier's is, and everybody wants to copy you. So you should have customs protecting you and your brand at the border, just like Cartier does. We have many ways to keep in touch. I highly encourage you to stay in the loop on trade news. There is so much that goes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in the world of trade. We put on a weekly blog, a monthly newsletter, all sorts of social media ways to keep in touch. I don't care how you keep in touch, but keep in touch. Keep in touch with us. And I'm sure you guys are going to have questions and a lot of them. So our host will let us know if you guys want to take questions now or if you want to wait to the end, and I'm fine with either. So thank you all for, I'm hoping, learning something new today. There's so much to learn in the import-export space, and there's all of those topics alone we can talk for hours on. So if anyone does have questions, I'm delighted to take them. And if we can't get to them today, then please feel free to reach out at jen@diaztradelaw.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that information, Jen, and so good to see you again. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I believe our host, Ms. Tara, in the back will be looking for questions on this topic, and we can get all of those answered towards the end, if that's okay, Ms. Jennifer?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, thank you so much. And before we move on to Kathryn, just maybe one or few questions that we would like to ask in transitioning to Kathryn. While we know it's so important, right off to begin understanding what the compliance is when it comes to trade and exporting, what would be your first three key to know for businesses when they look to get involved in trade and exporting? I know you gave us 10 of those steps, but if you had to just say, these are the three things before you even get started in getting involved in trading, importing, and exporting, what would be those key 3 laws or regulations businesses should follow at the very beginning?
All right. So to me, starting a business, you need an actual business. You need a company. So the bare bones is you have to have a company registered. That's a must. I hate the personal importations more than anything, and we see so much of that. That breaks my heart. You shouldn't have $1 million potential penalty on your bank account, on your assets. That hurts. 2 is I see people having to shut down their business because they didn't research anti-dumping, countervailing duties, the right amount of duties for their products. That's the bare bones minimum research that you have to do at the beginning. Because if you want to import something and the duty rate's 700% because there's anti-dumping involved, you're not going to do it. And if you would have known in advance, you wouldn't have taken this on and you'd pick something else. So I see people get so excited with the prospect of a sale that they don't do their homework and research, and it winds up putting them out of business. So whatever money you made, you're going to have to pay the man back because the government is unforgiving and unrelenting when it comes to anti-dumping. You're laughing because it's true, Kathryn. You know it's true.
Well, no, we're unforgiving over here.
You're different. You're the nice part. I'm talking about customs. Customs is the second largest revenue collection agency in the United States besides the IRS. They want their money, honey, and they'll always want their money. So if you don't pay them the right amount of money, they pounce. And the way that they're pouncing these days is unrelenting. It's bad. All sorts of stories to share on that front. And I would say the last aspect that I don't think enough people take seriously is protecting yourself and your own brand. Because to me, it's something we see everyone taking the time to at least understand and educate themselves on USPTO registration, but nobody realizes that customs literally acts as a policeman at the border. I dare you to hire a private investigator to follow around a competitor that's copying your brand and tell me what that costs and what kind of results you would get from that investigator versus customs will seize the product, issue a penalty, and tell you so you could personally go after them. For $190 per trademark class, per 10-year registration mark that goes along with your USPTO registration, it's just, these are what I would call the easy things that you should be doing at the beginning, in addition to like picking the service providers and interviewing them. It's not just any Joe Schmo that like wants to work with you. You need to make sure that you like and know and trust who you're working with. And for everyone from your supplier to your customs broker to whoever you're trusting. I'm sorry, they're all important,
Yes.
Angela. I can't just.
Well, that's why I ask, and trust me, if I was starting a business and wanted to get involved in trade, export, and importing, I would definitely be calling your office. So thank you so much for providing
I
that.
would hope. If you don't call me, call somebody that wants to, that
will.
has your best interests at heart.
That's right.
Because
That's
there's
right.
research that has to be done.
Absolutely, and that's why you're here. So hold on. I'm sure there'll be more questions toward the end. And of course, next, we will have Kathryn Dye Gresh. She is the Senior International Trade Specialist with the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, U.S. Department of Commerce, where she provides one-on-one international trade consulting to firms throughout South Florida. Ms. Dye joined the U.S. Department of Commerce in 1999 and specializes in assisting firms in aviation, aerospace safety, security, and franchising. She is an active member of the trade community and also serves on the U.S. Commercial Services Global Aerospace Security and Franchising teams, bringing cutting-edge worldwide information and opportunities to Florida firms in these industries. So we want to definitely welcome Ms. Gresh while she engages our audience in identifying and developing your business market. Please join us in welcoming Ms. Kathryn Dye Gresh. Ms. Kathryn, welcome to the platform.
Thank you so much, Angela. So just a couple housekeeping notes, and thank you, John. I always learn something new, and I'm always inspired by your energy. First of all, Angela, can you see my presentation? I'm not that familiar.
Yes,
Okay,
we
great,
can.
great. Unfortunately, I love having the view where I can see all of you and my presentation, but I couldn't figure that out. So I just have my presentation up. Secondly,
it's not in PowerPoint mode. So we
I can see my presentation, but I can't see the WebEx now.
Okay, that's fine. We'll move forward.
Next, Angela, are we recording this WebEx this morning?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So if anyone's uncomfortable with being recorded, please disconnect. Sorry, we didn't make that disclaimer at the beginning. So it's important we do that. So welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Kathryn Dye. I'm with the United States Department of Commerce. Within the Department of Commerce, which is the largest department within the U.S. government, we are under the International Trade Administration, and more specifically, the U.S. Commercial Service. Our role is to help U.S. companies expand into foreign markets. So we support the export of U.S. products and services. So what do we do to help U.S. companies effectively enter new markets? We have a variety of different services that we provide, from export counseling, providing market intelligence or market research. We perform business matchmaking for U.S. firms, and we represent U.S. firms in commercial diplomacy to address different trade obstacles so that they can successfully enter foreign markets. I will get into each of these a little bit more in my next slide, but it's important to understand how we're made up. We have about 100 domestic offices and about 157 overseas offices where we're typically located within our U.S. embassies and consulates. Here in South Florida, we have offices on Blue Lagoon in Miami and another office in the beautiful Port Everglades. So export counseling. What do I do on a daily basis? I am typically spending my day speaking with different U.S. exporters to address where they are in the export process and help them develop strategies for generally planning how they will export. And it covers everything from perhaps different factors such as financing, logistics. It can also be, as Jen covered, some of the export controls and how to develop different compliance strategies within their companies. It's as you well know after hearing Jen, exporting is not for the faint of heart. There are a lot of different aspects to the process, and actually, I'd like to point out, if I can, you just heard from Jen, you'll hear from me. It's a lot of information that you'll hear in here. Fortunately, I've been doing this for 23 years. Jen, I'm not sure how many years, but I know I've known you for a really long time, maybe 20. So the beauty here is we have a very tight-knit community. And if you forgot something, you can always ask any single one of us. We all know each other. We've been doing this for a very long time and can refer you to the right partners in the local community that can help to answer your specific questions. Market intelligence. There is a lot of information. Jen mentioned export.gov. I'd like to point out we are now trade.gov. So if you check out trade.gov, you will find so much information, which is sometimes a challenge just finding what you need on the site. We're always here to help you find that. But we have a variety of have on trade.gov is actually a sort of self-assessment quiz. And it's been around a long time, but I always find it to be assessment. And it goes through a variety of different questions, but it really helps you to sort of organize and understand different things that you might need to look into a little further before you perhaps take on your export journey. On trade.gov, we have a variety of different market research tools. We have country commercial guides, which are prepared by our industry experts on the ground in country. They provide everything from market conditions, opportunities, best industry prospects, regulatory information, demographic information. Really, that's kind of your first stop when you want to know more about a particular market.
Ms. Kathryn?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We just received a notification your slides are not advancing.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing the page. It's on the just more not in the presentation cameras.
I could not understand that.
I believe you're sharing the screen with the edit comments and the comments, not in the presentation one.
Yes, your PowerPoint is not in presentation mode.
Oh, it is. It is in presentation mode. So let's do this. Let me exit that.
Okay.
And let's just try something real quick. Can you see my PowerPoint application now?
Yes, we can. It's on business matchmaking.
Okay, so let's just do it this way.
Okay.
Because it was in presentation mode. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So if we just backtrack a little bit,
Okay.
we were on number 1.
Yes.
So here I talked a little bit about the different things that we provide, from counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking. Okay. Export counseling. This is what I do every day. Every company is different. No two are ever built the same. So we really provide a very individualized, tailored approach to our export counseling. Everyone has, even within certain industries. I do work in aerospace and defense. We have a very, in South Florida, we have a very large sector for maintenance, repair, and overhaul in aerospace. And again, no two repair stations are ever the same. Different aircraft, different specifics, different specialties. So our approach to export counseling is extremely tailored to each client and what they're hoping to accomplish. Here, I talked a little bit about our market intelligence. I was on Country Commercial Guides. You can find these on trade.gov. If you look in the bottom right there, you don't need to go to Export Solutions. In fact, if you just go to trade.gov, you can search by industry sector, you can search by market, and our specialists on the ground in our 157 different locations regularly write up. Everyone works by industry sector for the most part. And so we are regularly writing up different information. Anytime there's a change in market, there's even if there's a new regulatory decision that's made in market and it can affect a certain industry, we're regularly writing up this kind of information on different opportunities, new obstacles. So there's quite a bit of information to be found on here. We also do provide services that are fee-based services. Again, they are extremely reasonably priced. We are the US government. The reason we charge for certain services is that that set of information would not be something that's widely available, right? So what I mean by that is our country commercial guides, our general industry market research, that's available to all companies. When we do a service that's specialized for your company, we do charge a cost recovery basis. So essentially, it's, if you will, consider it, it's you paying for our time to do that, right? And so in some cases, some services, actually, we break them down to be an hourly rate, which is roughly about $30 an hour for our efforts. And then some we have preset pricing for. So for example, we have our initial market check. This is a assessment of the market potential for your product or service in a targeted market. Sometimes we have a good idea whether or not we think something has potential. But before we dig further, we do what we kind of would call a spot check, right? So we'll call on different industry contacts and really assess how, we like to hedge our bet and we like to hedge your bet. So before you invest more money in the market, we do sort of some tailored market research to make sure that you have high potential, if you were to travel there or move further with business meetings or whatnot. To give you an idea of what our pricing is, an initial market check in a market is $350 for a small to medium sized firm. A small to medium sized firm is characterized by less than 500 employees. I apologize. You're seeing all of my MS Teams and my emails roll in here. So is that visible, Angela, when they pop up?
No, it's okay. We could hear them, but it's okay.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No worries.
An international company profile, which I also have listed here, is interesting. It varies slightly what we can provide from market to market based on what's available. But we can provide, if you're interested in a potential business partner that is unknown to you, as Jen said, know your customer, right? And we can do sort of a background check, if you will, in country. In some cases, we will go prior to COVID, if you'll excuse me, I had to make that disclaimer, prior to COVID, and hopefully soon. Some of these we can go out to the foreign place of business and just confirm who they are. We can provide general business information, background, key officials, references, financials sometimes, not always, depending on the market. So business matchmaking, this is probably our headliner, if you will. Companies tend to have very, very good success with this. Once we perform an initial market check, we have tailored services to actually help you do business in a particular market. Our flagship program, if you will, is the Gold Key service. In the Gold Key service, we help companies sort of from A to Z. We will identify pre-qualified potential business partners for you in a particular market. This typically entails 4 to 6 meetings in a given day. It's been a bit interesting during COVID because, as you might imagine, it was quite difficult to carry these out. So we turn to virtual appointments. Now, depending on your industry, these aren't always the best, right? I would say that in international trade, the business relationship and the face-to-face meeting is paramount. However, we found this to work sort of in an interesting way throughout COVID. So we sometimes in a market, there aren't 4 to 6 qualified potential business partners. Sometimes there 2 that would be a fit for you, right? Just because they don't exist. And so we found through this is it made a lot of sense to conduct virtual meetings when we can't provide you a full day, right? So just sort of an initial meeting, scheduling these virtual appointments and seeing how that business relationship progresses. And then you're able to then follow up and assess whether or not a trip is warranted. We have a number of other programs that are listed here. The single company promotion is where these are not individual meetings, but rather we will identify a audience or guest list, invite them, and then you sort of can do a presentation of your business and cast a wider net of potential business partners. Again, all of these services, it's always tricky when I do a presentation on these because I work with companies daily. There is a lot of legwork that we do before we get to these. We, it's not we don't have a, value menu and you order the number 3 or the number 6. I work with companies every day to help develop individualized strategies that may ultimately end up in one of these services, a variation of the service. But again, and in fact, I don't think I mentioned this, my performance and my agency's performance is actually based on our companies having success in a particular market. So great for me and great for you, but we are not in the business of wasting time or money for you to travel to a market if you don't have high potential for success. And we do a lot of research to assess that initially. So, and to that effect, if one market doesn't have as high of potential, there may be another market that does. So there's a lot of legwork, as I said, that we put into this before we get to these business matchmaking tools. Well, actually, it's perfect to mention here, trade events. We work with, in fact, I just came off of an assignment last August. I was our global team leader for aerospace and defense. And our agency, in that role, I represented our agency on behalf of the aerospace and defense industry. And much of my work was developing our programming from an industry perspective. And this is where I spent a lot of time working on trade events. In aerospace and defense, we are extremely active with the key shows in this sector, being Paris Air Show, Farnborough, Singapore, and in a variety of others. There's Avalon in Australia. There's many, many shows when you dig into particular industries. We work with the show organizers to develop different services in alignment with the shows to help you be most effective when you choose to participate in a trade show. These can involve one-on-one meetings with our specialists from different markets. In some cases, we'll do those in advance of a show so that you have more information that you can act on when you actually hit the trade show floor. We also have different programs involving certified trade missions to particular markets. Sometimes these are industry specific. Other times they may be what we call horizontal trade missions, where it represents a variety of different industry sectors. What I want to mention here is our close partnership with Enterprise Florida. Enterprise, while I am on a federal government level, Enterprise Florida is your state trade promotion agency. And we work hand in hand. And in fact, you are very lucky to be in the state of Florida, because I would argue that we have probably one of the best, state and federal relationships in the nation. We very regularly co-counsel clients so that we're bringing them the full set of resources. And Enterprise Florida does offer grants for different trade promotion activities for Florida manufacturers. So Florida companies are eligible to, I believe, up to $7,000 in grant reimbursement for different trade activities. This could be a foreign trade show. It could be using our matchmaking services. But again, and we'll talk about that later, but know that, again, as I mentioned earlier, we really pride ourselves in bringing you the full set of resources. In fact, my office in Miami is co-located with SBA and the Export-Import Bank of the U.S. So again, if you have a question and you forgot Jen's name or contact information or can't find it, I know where to find her. I know where to find our colleagues with SBA or our colleagues with Enterprise Florida. So again, I just want to emphasize there's a lot of information coming at you here, and just not to worry, because we've all been doing this a long time. And as long as you have one of us or you have Angela, you can find all of us. We also do work in commercial diplomacy. This is a slightly different angle of some of the work that we do, but we do advocacy. We also have channels where you can report trade barriers or settle trade disputes. It is important when I mention trade disputes, we cannot assist you if you have already engaged legal counsel in country. Okay. We also have no legal backing really on, this may sound, well, with trade disputes, our role is really to facilitate communication. Sometimes there are misunderstandings. Typically foreign firms do pay attention when they get a call from the United States Embassy. Okay. And sometimes that can be a little bit of, it can help you to resolve any miscommunications, or maybe they're not miscommunications, but they can help to influence a positive outcome. So if you have a trade dispute, I highly encourage you to contact us first, and we can help you to navigate how you may pursue that. In some instances, you may want to pursue legal action. With some of these, they can be, as Jen knows, they can be expensive and drawn out. I have had companies call me over $5,000. Okay. You're not going to hire an attorney over $5,000. You're not going to do it. So sometimes we can help to, and there are some issues that are higher dollar value, but sometimes it's a miscommunication. And so we hope to advocate and hopefully resolve those without too much bleeding, if you will. Reporting trade barriers. We do have official channels for documenting those, following up on those. So please, if you encounter one, please let me know. And then advocacy. We actually have an advocacy program where we help U.S. firms to win foreign contracts, procurements. We would like to see U.S. firms win a potential contract over, say, a German firm or whatnot. So we actually have a formal process for that. It's a little bit more involved. So if you have anything like that where you're competing in a foreign bid, please let me know. So why do we do this? Why do we do what we do? Because exports matter. More than 70% of the world's purchasing power is outside the US. And our competitors are increasing their global market share at a faster rate than we are. And I actually love this part because it really depicts, the United States is such a big market. And I love these slides because they really help to give you a global perspective. Okay. The United States, okay, only 12% of our GDP is generated by exports. Okay. We have a lot of room to grow. And if you look around, maybe you could say, okay, Germany, well, 47% of their GDP is exports. Well, I get it. They're in the European Union. Their neighbors are close by. But if that's the case, Canada's exporting 32% of their GDP is generated by exports. So we're underperforming, folks. So this is why we do what we do. Our mission, again, why are we helping U.S. companies export their products and services? Ultimately, we want to grow exports to increase U.S. jobs, high-paying jobs, well-paying jobs. And again, this talks a little bit about some of the things I already mentioned. Our global network, that we are results-driven as an agency. Let me move on. We assisted 31,000 exporters last year as an agency. Okay. And 92% of those 31,000 that we assisted were small to medium-sized companies. Okay. So they weren't, just the, Lockheed Martins of the world and the big companies. Nope. 92% of our client base that we work with daily are small to medium-sized firms. And 10.7 million jobs are supported by exports in 2019. Talk about our return on investment. For every $1 allocated to our agency, our ROI is about $360 to the U.S. economy. Simply put, companies that export grow faster. And because they're diversified, they're less likely to go out of business. Now, to talk about the state of Florida, we are a very high performing export state, as you might have already assumed. 2.5 million jobs are supported by international trade in Florida. 58,000 companies are involved in international trade in the state of Florida. And 94%, or 54,700 of Florida's exporters are small to medium-sized companies. Okay, which is actually, if you notice my last slide, I said 92% of our clients are small to medium-sized exporters, right? And so if you were just sort of to think about that statistic in the state of Florida, 94% of the exporters are small to medium-sized firms. And for the state of Florida in 2021, exports were at 55.5 billion. And how do you reach me? Here's our local office. We have an entire team of specialists that work by different industry sector. It was a bit to add them all here. So what I've done is I've included my contact information, so I can certainly get you to the correct person, as well as my director, Eduardo Torres. Again, we have offices in Miami on Blue Lagoon, and we also have an office in the beautiful, beautiful Port Everglades. So here's how you reach me. Angela, did you want to take any questions now, or I'll leave this up for 1 second?
Yes, thank you, Kathryn. I know we're taking some questions at the end, but if you can tell us before we transition to Ronaldo, because I know I would have some difficulties, of course, with most of our small businesses do have when it comes to technology help and knowing that you have this tool, the what you call the market finder, so you have small businesses wanting to get involved and of course join and want to know, more about their market or their specific market globally. Do you have technical assistance that they could use or get to help them identify what would be the best market for them?
Yes, there are a variety of different tools that we've been, actually, some of them are sort of new on our website where you can actually like manipulate by product and country.
Okay.
So those are interesting. But we also, one thing I didn't mention that we work very closely with too is Florida's network of small business development centers.
Okay.
And the reason that I mention that is because we do it, but they also have really great resources. I've had a few clients that have worked with them recently to do some globalization of their websites.
Yes.
And I can't emphasize how important this is. Okay, you could be a very small company, but hey, it is 2021. We all know this. You can be a TikTok star if you want, right? But your website is everything. And I have companies that I've worked with for years, and we sort of started doing this, I don't know, a few years ago. And I was shocked because do you know how many companies I work with that are big exporters and never anywhere on their website does it say we export?
Yes. That's
I
why
mean,
I asked.
it's
Yes.
such
Thank
an
you.
oversight. And it's just, because you're just thinking, oh, well, we're in our industry and we do this, and you're making your website. And it's like, oops, right? And they've been exporting very successfully because I apologize, the palm trees are killing me with the pollen. But it's they do well in their industries, and they've been exporting because it's word of mouth
Yes.
and people inquire. But it's such a simple thing that gets overlooked. And also the SBDCs are truly an amazing resource.
Yes, they
Okay.
are.
We have folks that do everything from helping you assess your inventory, cash flow, like aside from international issues, getting you in good, it's kind of like you go to the doctor every year, right?
Yes.
They can get you in good business health. And yeah, they have a number of different offices in South Florida. They do have folks that we work closely with that do some international. And really, they're a tremendous resource too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn, and definitely put your information into the chat, and we will call on you towards the end for more questions. And again, thank you so much for that information. Okay, our third panelist joining us this morning is Mr. Rolando Sousa. Mr. Rolando, forgive us with your name. Well, we're so glad you're joining us this morning. Of course, you are the director and implementation leader for the World Logistics Passports in the Americas. The WLP is a public-private sector initiative to boost international trade through a selected networks of hubs and logistic providers such as ports, airports, customs, and other logistics services providers that will work on strengthening existing and developing new trading routes through these selected high-growth potential markets. We want to definitely welcome this morning Mr. Ronaldo Sousa. Mr. Ronaldo, the platform is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. You can hear me very well?
Yes, your volume is a little muffled. It's a lot of back.
Yes. Let me try to put it some louder here. Is it better now?
It did not.
Can we try this, or should I disconnect and try to connect again?
You may have, it may be your piece that you're holding there, the earplugs. If you disconnect from that, maybe.
Let me try to do it so that I was one better.
Okay.
Hello? You hear me?
No, it's still bad.
Just putting the volume up here. Do you hear me well?
We
No.
can hear you, but the feedback.
Yes, let me try it here. Is this any better? Is this any better?
A little better, just a little.
Okay, let me share my presentation here.
Okay.
Let me just make sure it's sharing the middle screen. All right, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
So once again, thank you very much for all of you guys that are joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to share this opportunity. I was glad actually to hear someone here saying that export is a big opportunity for the U.S. economy. So we're working on expanding this network. Will briefly explain you a little bit about this opportunity?
Yes, Mr. Ronaldo?
Yes.
Yes, we're getting a lot of feedback and your mic sounds very muffled. We could barely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, let me disconnect them. If I may suggest that we can change the order, we can pass it on to the Port Everglades, and I disconnect and I try to bring it back to you.
I didn't understand you.
Angela, I think that he was suggesting that we move on to Robert with Port Everglades and that he can come
Okay.
back around.
Thank you.
Right.
All right,
Right.
let's do that. Okay, thank you so much for that. We're going to come back to Mr. Ronaldo. And so up next, we will definitely go to Mr. Robert Barcelo. Robert Barcelo was appointed Business Development Manager for Port Everglades on June 9, 2014. He brings diverse ocean carrier knowledge to his endeavor to further develop businesses through the Port Everglades. Port Everglades enjoys the benefits of generating revenues of more than $170 million in fiscal year 2021, as well as the distinction of being top container port in Florida. During this year, the port handled 1,053 million TEUs in the Port Everglades, which is among the top 3 cruise ports, moving an average of 3.9 million passengers annually. Mr. Barcelo most recently served as commercial manager for Isabel Shipping. He has held similar commercial and operational managerial positions with various South Florida regional and multinational carriers. We welcome to the platform Mr. Robert Barcelo. Good morning, Robert. How are you this morning? Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Mumford. Good to see you. Good to see everyone else. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Ronaldo was coming in and I thought I was going through a Burger King drive-through, but it's okay.
It's okay.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to address the group. Very good program so far. I think Kathryn made a comment as to how lucky we are to be in Florida, but I think I have to echo that. But we're lucky to be in Florida simply because we have all these resources available to us,
Absolutely.
and small companies don't have to fumble their way through if they're looking to export or expand their markets. There are resources available left and right. My presentation is focused on what Port Everglades brings to the potential exporter or a person that's already exporting, just to let them know what we have here, the lines that are servicing the port, the diversity of services that the port offers, which in of itself, I think, opens up opportunities for for exports and imports, for that matter. I know the subject of the webinar is both import and export. So far, we've heard about exports, but it's good to know that there's also our neighbors are doing what we're doing here to promote exports. They're promoting exports from their side as well, and our diversity here in Florida attracts a lot of that import opportunity as well. Let me see. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. All right. Just want to make sure that this is on presentation mode, so you see the full screen. And can you still see it?
Yes, we do, with the
Perfect.
small notes on the side.
All right, perfect. This is not working here. All right,
There we go.
now we're cooking. Well, first of all, Port Everglades, we are operated, and this statement alone is very worthy, I should say, to Broward populace, people that live in Broward. We support the operation of the port by fees, 100% fees that are collected from the users of the port. The $170 million in operating expense that you made reference to goes towards operating the port. We do not take a penny from Broward's taxes, which provides Broward, South Florida, a powerful economic engine, literally at zero cost, which is, it's always a good thing. We are a landlord port. Most ports in Latin America and even throughout the world are operating ports. What does that mean? That means that the port handles all of the cargo operations within the port. We are a landlord port. Quite simply, we develop land in the port and lease it to private facilities through a concession program, and private companies are the ones that operate here in the port. Some Port Everglades by numbers, some of the highlights of what our commercial activity here generate. We exports, the value of the commercial exports for fiscal year 21 exceeded $11 billion. Hopefully those that are joining us today will impact that figure in the years to come. Imports as well, $11.3 billion. It puts us in a very good position as a port. We have a very good balance of trade, as you can see here by the figures. We are Florida's #1 refrigerated cargo port with over 157,000 containers of refrigerated cargo moving through the port. That's both import and export, although refrigerated cargo for Port Everglades is primarily an import scenario. If you go to your local grocery store, most of the fresh veggies, fish that you see at the port at your grocery store more than likely came in through Port Everglades. General seaport revenue, we updated that from the first slide that I showed, $103 million for fiscal year 21. We are Florida's #3 container port by volume and ship calls. Foreign trade zone, something else that could be touched on at a later date that will provide benefits primarily for importing companies. And petroleum, all of the petroleum that is used in South Florida comes in through Port Everglades. The recent scare with the Colonial Pipeline did not affect us in the least here in South Florida, simply because everything that you consume for your cars, trucks, and even the airports, the top 3 airports, Miami, FLL, West Palm, and Perry, get their jet fuel from Port Everglades. What do? We are an economic powerhouse, simply put. In as much as we don't take a single penny from tax rolls, we put in excess of $1 billion in state and local taxes into the community. We generate over 10,000 direct jobs, and over 196,000 jobs in Florida in general are impacted by the activity here at the port. Here's a picture of our container area. We have over 21 ocean carriers operating out of the port with 8 main terminal operators, and we are ranked the 11th port in the nation, or 12th rather, in the nation in volume. That's not too shabby in my book.
Yeah.
And in Florida alone, most people don't know, Florida alone has 15 ports. So to be among the 3, that's not so bad. The trade lanes that are serviced by the port, which in essence gives the users or the attendees today where they can focus from a transportation or logistics standpoint, because you have to be able to get your product to your customers. We are essentially a Latin American port. 75% of what goes through the port is Latin America, either destined or origin. As a matter of fact, 13% of the United States total commercial activity is channeled through Port Everglades. So we're extremely LATAM based. I don't know how these figures come through the screen there, but the trade partners for fiscal 21, just to show you and to reemphasize that point that we are very much Latin America. The connectivity outside of Latin America, how we connect internationally. We've got services going in and out of Port Everglades that reach 150 ports worldwide, 70 countries. So if you got something going somewhere or coming somewhere, we got you. Our domestic connectivity, we have a rail facility right here at the port. These days of emphasis on sustainability, it's good to know that we've got the rail facility here that provides us an option, or provides Florida an option to get trucks off the road. In Nexus, we average about 5,000 containers a month that go in and out of that rail onto other destinations, or for those exporting, if you have a supplier that's outside of Florida, they can ship on rail into Port Everglades as well. And as you can see by the graph here, or I'm hoping you can see, within 4 days from the port, you can access 70% of U.S. population. Here's a picture of the rail facility I've just made reference to. This is a good example of private-public partnership. The port provided the acreage for the rail, but all the cost of building that rail facility was absorbed by the actual rail company. So a good example of public-private partnership. Some of the lines that are servicing the port, I don't know if these names mean anything to you, but here they are. Our foreign trade zone, I'll briefly touch on that, because that's, we can have a separate webinar on foreign trade zones and the benefits that brings to primarily the import sector into Broward. It's a great tool. Broward has, not only do we have a foreign trade zone facility here at the port, there's 17 ZUB zones throughout Broward County. And again, that's something that we can touch at a different seminar, webinar, because it is a very, very useful tool. Some of the pictures of what we do here at Foreign Trade Zone 25. We do have the distinction of being the first foreign trade zone in Florida. Got to do a little bit of updating on these figures here, but on 2017, over $6 billion in total commercial activity moved through that zone, and we generate, or the zone generates, in excess of 500 direct jobs. And again, creating jobs is what's all about. Here's a picture of what, or not a picture, but a drawing of what the area of Broward County. And every time you see a dot in there, I don't know how well that comes in, but that's a ZUB zone. So you don't have to be at the foreign trade zone building here at the port. If you've got a sizable enough activity, you can apply to become a free trade zone user, and you're off to the races, as they say. So again, a very, very good tool. And we're expanding. The port continues to grow. This is the first part of many of infrastructure projects that are being undertaken here at the port. This is what we call our Southport turning notch extension. We are essentially, simply put, we are creating more berthing capacity because the port needs, there's more and more ships coming in and out of the port, and we are in dire need of more berthing space for those ships. And of course, with added berth comes the need for added crane. These are the first three of ZPM cranes that we bought and have installed at the port. Every time I look at this picture, I marvel at the fact that this crane, as you see it, came across the ocean from China, fully assembled, and it's installed at the port. And we actually ordered 3 more because of the growth here at the port. The Foreign Trade Zone, it's part of what we call the International Logistics Center. That's a brand new, well, it's about 2 years in existence now. If you look at the upper left-hand part of the picture, that's the old Foreign Trade Zone building. The building has pretty much exceeded its useful life. These buildings were put together back in the late, actually early 70s. So they're very antiquated. We needed to move to newer facilities that can accommodate the growth. And if you can see, the building is taller, a little bit taller than the old building. The old building was essentially a one floor. This is a 2-story building, so you get more use, more warehousing through mezzanines and pallet racks. All right, Kathryn touched on some of the figures that certainly impact what we do here. Most firms think that exporting is a gargantuan task. Oh, no, not little me. I can't do that. That's not the case. That's not the case. Less percent, the text speaks for itself. Less than 1% of American companies export. And again, to ride on Kathryn's comments, here it is. I mean, there's all sorts of room for you to grow as long as you have a product that is well received. And it's good to say, it's good to recognize that American products are very respected abroad. I traveled extensively promoting the facilities here at the port. And the first thing when I said, look, where are you getting your cargo? Where are you getting that merchandise from? Oh, these are American products. American products are highly coveted because of design and foremost, quality. Built good products, built well, built to last, which is what a lot of people are looking for. And again, these are, I mean, some of these bring the argument home. 95% of your potential customers are outside your comfort zone. which is mind-blowing, that, you know, you've got 95% growth potential by turning on your exporting facilities. 95% of consumers live outside the US, and 2/3 of the world's purchasing power is in foreign countries. Let's get to it. And here, small, medium-sized companies account for 97% of all U.S. exports. That to me is a powerful argument for some of you, if not all of you on the line here today, to look into expanding your exporting or starting your exporting capacity and start making money. And that's all I wrote. I thank you for the time. I believe we're going to have a Q&A session after all these presentations, and I welcome all these questions. Thank you very much for the time. Next. What are you smiling about? Patty, what are you smiling about? I hear you.
Ronaldo, let's check your volume and see how you are.
Yeah, exactly. Can you guys hear me now?
It's still quite muffled, unfortunately, Ronaldo. Are you able to dial in?
Let me try to. Yeah.
I would mute your line and try to dial in. Unfortunately, your computer connection is quite muffled.
Okay.
Thank you.
I feel like I need to order a Whopper.
Yeah, exactly. It does sound like the drive-through. All right, back to you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. Angela's computer decided to go on Brits, so she's in the middle of fixing that issue. So I will take it here for the moment. And so we had Ronaldo. Are you on the line? And are you here with your audio? I guess that's where we left
Richard,
off.
Ronaldo's dialing in right now, so he's
He
going to
is?
take a couple of seconds to do
Okay.
that.
Okay. We'll wait a couple seconds then for Ronaldo. And I think we are getting some questions. So thank you, all of you, for staying with us to the end so we can answer questions. Just to give a preview of people who are on the line, Ronaldo will be up next, provided his audio problems have been fixed, and then followed by Patty Archer from the Miramar Pembroke Pines Chamber of Commerce to speak about the chamber. So far we've heard from Jennifer on the trade law side of things, Kathryn on the international trade specialist, U.S. Department of Commerce, and of course, Robert from the port. So 3 great subject areas for our audience today. And Ronaldo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's some problem with my connection here. I'm trying to dial in, so we can move on to the next and I'll try to dial in.
Okay, we will do that then. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem. We will work with you on that. Patty, we will move to your session. Hey, and take it away.
Everybody for having me. And yes, Robert, I was smiling because you are opening my mind to
Yeah, it died.
all the small and
He didn't have.
medium businesses we can have out there. So I am going to share my presentation with you all. Hopefully you can see it. Is it going?
Patty, your volume is quite low. Can you put it up to the max?
It's up to the max now. It's not? Do you hear me?
A little bit better. Thank you.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so hopefully you can see my presentation. My name is Patty Archer. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We have 600 and some more small and medium businesses, but as well as other big businesses here in the city of Miramar. I have put a QR code there, so if you want to know more information about us or you want to contact my information, it's also on the right. but it's also in that QR code. So you can actually put your phone there and get all the information. We are known here in Miramar, Pembroke Pines. We've been here for over 50 years as a Chamber of Commerce, and we do represent very well City of Miramar and Pembroke Pines. So here, a little bit about us, established since 1969. Also, for those that do not know what the Chamber of Commerce is, yes, we do networking, we do fun stuff, but we do protect our business professionals in the area to promote and protect their interests as a member, providing also platforms like these, and also get invited to talk to other businesses about what's going on in the region. I was invited to talk about the certificate of origin. As many you may know or are trying to get into it, it just basically confirms and certifies that the goods are coming from a particular country. Not that it's being sent from, it's very important. And I think Kathryn and Jen will agree that it's not from, it's coming from the words of manufactured. Why do you need a certificate of origin? This just basically is stating what are, based on the federal trade agreements, what lower duty rates do you pay? Because the US does have their own federal trade agreements, and that way it determines what products have that. So the certificate of origin helps prove that the product is allowed into that specific country. So kind of to put it all together, Jen did talk to us about, yes, you need to start a business, you need to protect yourself, and you need to do your homework. Kathryn then goes into, yeah, we need to grow US exports and to increase the US jobs. And also this biz matchmaking, which is, I think it's phenomenal. And I'm also going to share with my certificate of origins businesses that come. We do have about 10 to 15 of them that come into this chamber. And Robert, I loved your presentation, also how beautiful it is, the diversity of services that we do have there. But like him, you got something to ship somewhere, they got you, but also how do you brand that? How do you promote that in your local businesses? This is where we come in. We do certify in the Chamber of Commerce of certificate of origins again. And why Chamber of Commerce in all of this? It's basically how you market. Kathryn did talk about some exporters and some other businesses that she's seen that there's no websites or anything like that. We do have a plethora of services, different companies and businesses that can help you. How to do your branding, how to your websites, who to network with, but most importantly, those partnerships that you need to add to your products or services. We hopefully you can find it here with our networking side of it. It's that visibility, but most importantly, that advocacy. We are your voice for state, federal, and local level, and anything that is affecting businesses, that's where generally we advocate for. Applying for a certificate of origin, we do have our process and we can always send these things to you, but a little bit of description of what each one is, the co-signer, the co-signee, transport details. It's extensive, but yet there's information out there. We have information on our own website as well, so you can go ahead and see how you can fill this out. But the requirements that we say to people, it is not where it's being sent from. It is where the goods are manufactured. We have a couple different ways that you can go ahead and apply for a certificate of origin. You come in here, see our happy faces, and also come in with your paper goods. But if you want to save a paper or tree or two, we have the facility of doing it online. So what does that help you? It eliminates your courier cost. It reduces the administration costs. It reduces the errors, improved turnaround time, and also anything that you have no idea that you needed information from, you can also put it there. So the two different options, you can still do from online, come to the office, or even send it to us and we can send it back to you for exporter prints. How do I get exposure with the chamber? And as a business owner, how do I get that exposure that I need to do partnerships or provide my products or services, or even grab from other businesses or businesses to grab from my ideas to do products or services for themselves? We do have a website. We also provide dashboards individually for each member so they can provide information per category. But one of the most important things is the job posting. So if you do need more workers, you need more information on other businesses that probably need people to work for them, we do have job postings. The fun part, we do have a lot of networking events. We do a lot. This month alone, we have about 20 to 37 events, different things that we're posting either online or in person. We do have it all. So the in-person, the Zoom, we provide information every single month, and we use our own members to do so. So for example, information like this that is valuable, we do just take requests from our members. So if they want to know about import and export, our cities, both the city of Miramar and the city of Pembroke Pines, are both good partners of ours that they also help us, and we help them providing information, or members that can provide that information. If you did not know and you are part of the city of Miramar, they do have an incentive program for all the businesses in Miramar. So it is nice and easy, but it all depends on what side of city of Miramar you are. But if you do pay your taxes in the city of Miramar, I would take fully advantage of this. How do you get connected to us? Again, I'm providing the QR code there. You can be seen, be heard, and belong. And the most important thing is, we here at the Chamber, we do provide services and products that can help you also for your business, but also getting known for the brand as well. And that would be all.
Hello, can you guys hear me better?
Yes, you can hear better. Thank you, everybody.
Angela, you might need to unmute yourself. Okay. Ronaldo, yeah, we can hear you. So if you're
Yes.
ready, we
Yeah.
want to go ahead and bring up your presentation. And
Sure. So let me try to pull it up here.
perfect.
Let's see. Do you see my screen now?
We do.
So
Yes.
again, sincere apologies for the technical problems here. So I'll try to do it very quickly so we can save some time for some Q&A at the end. So once again, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. So we're starting to build or to increase the network of our partners globally. So this is a global initiative that we're talking about here. So I was actually glad to hear some of the opportunities that we have for exports and to integrate the Florida network of business community into the global network of these World Logistics Passport initiatives. So we'll run real quickly here about some of the logic and the overview of the program, and then how to join. So first of all, this is a global initiative, a policy initiative that was launched back in Davos in the World Economic Forum in 2020, right before the pandemic. So the world has changed since then, but we are still working on expanding and creating this entire network of logistics service providers. So here we're talking about partnering with ports, airports, operators, terminals, airlines, logistics service providers, free zones, any logistics actor that can connect to this network to make an entire journey from end to end to help the companies to import and export in a faster, cheaper, and more streamlined way. So we're talking about here connecting several actors in this network, and it works in the form of a loyalty program. So once you join the company, you can join the company at the white tier level, and you can go up to the platinum level. So the higher you are, the higher benefits you can get. But to get these benefits, you have to show the strongest growth into the program. So we're negotiating a lot of incentives with several partners across the globe, and this is where the growth part comes into play. So even for SMEs, we're working on developing these incentives to integrate these companies into the global supply chains and open new market opportunities for them. So either for imports and exports, the opportunity is there, and we're happy to integrate these companies into this network. As partners, we're talking about integrating airport operations, port and terminal operators, even customs in some of the countries that the program is present. We have certain specific customs incentives in terms of accelerating and expediting the trade. We are talking to truck and road transportation, some of the rail connections. I was glad to see here some of the Robert's presentation from the port. Also airlines. So we're integrating all of these actors into a global network of providers to create these incentives and expedite the journeys into the export and import business. So the way how the program works, we have on one side the partners, which are the service providers that are providing benefits or incentives for the traders, which we call members in the program, for them to grow and integrate their business. So removing trade barriers and understanding their logistics challenges so that these incentives can be created and crafted and even tailored to solve these logistics challenges. So this is not only a commercial initiative to create, or a loyalty program to create more commercial, let's say, volume, but also looking at what are the trade barriers, because sometimes a 5 or a 10% discount on a freight or in a logistics service is not the main challenge, but time is the main challenge of these companies. So we want to work with these companies to understand their logistics journeys, and so that we can develop these certain incentives for them to increase their business. So this is an example on how we can connect. For example, this is where the program started out of the government of Dubai. So a cargo that arrives into the port and needs to be transported to the airport for a certain regional distribution, by adding and connecting these partners, so either port operator, terminal operator, trucking, airport, airline, and all of these actors throughout this journey, they can provide certain incentives, which can be priority access, priority handling, discounted rates, and so on and so forth, that we can expedite this journey and create a more smooth and faster trade route. Okay. I was glad to hear also some of the connections that we have from the Port Everglades to basically many countries across the globe. This is the network that the World Logistics Passport has so far. So we have started the conversations with the Port Everglades as the first U.S. hub that we are establishing for the program, because mainly of the Latin American and some of these other countries' connections. So we're happy to increase these conversations and open conversations with some of these countries where we are already established with this network of partners, and to create an incentive and open the conversations for the companies to increase their business. And very quickly here, as I was the last one to join, I took the I hid some of these slides here. But how to join the program? So if you are a logistics service provider, port or terminal operator, or you want to act into the logistics service provider, you can use the right-hand side on the screen. So as a partner, you can register as a partner and we can develop this conversation. But as a trader, if you are a freight forwarder, an importer, or an exporter, you can use the left-hand side of the slide and you can join the program. We're happy to have these conversations and take it forward to look into deepening the relationship and strengthening the business opportunities here. And very quickly, I again apologize for the technical difficulties here. I leave my contacts. I'm happy to support in answering any questions that you might have.
Just a quick note, Richard and Angela, it's Jennifer. Unfortunately, I do have to run, but it's been a pleasure to be a participant in this. If anybody does have questions, I know that the recording will probably be shared as well. I'm happy to be in touch, and I will be sharing my slides as well, as I'm sure other panelists will do, so that we can happily be a resource as needed.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Joanna, for your time. I see you in the chat. Okay. Just leaving your contact information. Appreciate that. I don't know, Angela, can you hear me? We can see you, but I think you have some audio problems on your end, but that's sort of the underlying theme, I guess, today. It's technical issues. I couldn't get the background thing to work on my end, so there you go. So I think we'll just close today's session by just, again, on our side here from the city, just thanking all our panelists for sharing of their time and their information. And as I said at the outset, this is our effort as a department to get more information and more resources out to our business community so they are better aware of opportunities outside of the United States, basically. I know the companies I speak to when I go out and visit, or they come here, join us in different programs, they are not quite aware of what might be out there for them. So what we will be doing is posting this session onto our website, and staff will be referring anybody who comes our way with the subject matter, and you know, refer them to the experts today. I did not see any specific questions in the chat box, so either you answered everybody's questions or they'll be coming later in time. So I think with that, unless anybody has anything else they want to share, we will close the program, and thank you again, and everybody have a wonderful day.
You as well. Thank you for including us. And again, any questions that anyone may have, feel free to reach out.
Much appreciation. Stay well.
Right, likewise.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Everyone.